Alright, so after the model has been completed, we're going to move on to the second portion of this video series on modeling a character and get to texturing. So what I want to start out with showing everybody is how I have every single different part of the mesh still its own object. This isn't optimal for once it's in the game, but it will help out a great deal when unwrapping UVs so that we don't have anything overlapping, and it's a lot easier to see. But once we're done with the UVs, we can go ahead and combine the objects, and it should be fine. So I'm going to start with the jacket and just go to Edit UVs, UV Texture Editor. And by looking at it already, I can tell that that's not quite going to work. And I always turn on the toggle, the UV shaded UV display. It helps with laying out UVs so you can see. Let me find something that's already unwrapped. So like these eyes, since they're spheres, they're pre-unwrapped, and they have a pretty nice blue color to them. Everything's nice and evenly placed. So basically that's how I want everything to look. I need that blue color on everything. If it's red, that means there's stuff overlapping. If it's like bright blue, that's really bad, and then red, obviously even worse. So we just want this nice little purple blue shade. So let's start with the jacket, and I'm going to start by creating a new planar mapping. Go to the options box, and I'm going to do it from the Z axis. So apply that planar mapping, and we can see that it already is displayed over here, and it looks pretty good. We know that this isn't going to work though, because the front and the back, they can't be the same. They can't take up the same texture space. So we need to go ahead and create some seams. My method for creating seams is usually to follow the natural seams that a piece of clothing or anything might have, and use those as the seams for the texture. So we're going to go to the zipper, and the arms go up and around each shoulder. Basically, you want to think of unwrapping UVs as you're skinning. You're trying to lay out a flat, like, pelt of an object. So think of it, it's kind of weird, but think of it like you're skinning an animal. And I think that really usually helps get cleaner UVs. So after I have my edges selected that I want to cut, I can come over here and use the Separate UV tool. Now what that does, using the UV shell select, I can select one of the two shells that it just gave me. Or three, I should say. So each arm is now its own set of UVs. So I can then take each arm and unfold them using the Smooth UV tool. Since I made that cut, it's going to unfold all of the rest of the UVs around that single cut. Okay, so now to play with the jacket a little bit more, because as you can probably see, if we try to do it right now, it's not going to work quite right, because we need to separate the front and the back a little bit further. So to do that, I can come up here and on the shoulder create another cut on the top. And I don't really want to cut down the arms, so I'm just going to create this cut. But then since I already have these laid out, I can go back to my UV selection. Oops. Select everything, and then use the Sew Selected UVs Together tool right here. It's different than the move and sew. Move will try to reconnect the UVs to where they originally were. Sew works just like merge vertices, and it'll just connect UVs that are right on top of each other that have been separated. So now those are separate. Those are together. Do the same thing on this one. And now I should have two different UV shells. One for the front and one for the back of my jacket. And I'm going to go ahead and save. I can't stress enough saving often while working on UVs. I've had Maya crash many times. So since this is red right now, and looking at it I can tell that it's the back as it doesn't have the zipper, I know that it's actually turned inside out, and that's the main reason why it's red. And if I try to use the smooth UV tool, it's going to do a lot of weird stuff. So what I can do is use the flip selected UVs in direction. So there, now they're blue because I just reversed it, and I can just use the smooth UV tool to unfold a little bit further. Just give me a nice and smooth shape. And now what I also just realized is that earlier I decided to cut along the zipper, which I didn't really need to do since I'm cutting out the front and the back separately. So I'm going to sew those back together, and then coming back in with the smooth UV tool and just unfold. Okay, so the jacket is pretty much done. Now all I've got to do is move everything within this gray bounding box, which defines my UV texture space. So if I right now everything is in scale proportionately to each other. So if I scale, I want to scale everything down at the same time. And then I'm just going to move stuff around to try to get the best fit possible. And I'm going to put everything just on one texture, one texture sheet for this character, because we're going with the toon shaded style. So most of the texture is really going to be small details and just a lot of solid colors. So I know that there's going to be a zipper on the front of the jacket, so this I do want a little bit more texture space for, but I don't want too much. Otherwise I might have some stretching or some really noticeable seams. So alright, there we go. The jacket is in place. I can scale it all down as I need to. I made that a little bit too big. Okay. So then I'm just going to scale everything down just a little bit because I realize I have a lot more, especially with the hair now. That's going to take up a little bit of space as well. So I think next I'll go ahead and do the face. Face usually takes the longest, but since this one I have a lot of the space cut out underneath the hair, it shouldn't be too bad to hide my UV seams. Because usually on a face, what we're going to do first is planar map it from the front, since that's what I did on the last planar map. It kept my settings. So, and then create my seam back here at the very back of the head. So just select that edge. Let's try unfolding. And actually that is really good results, so I'm probably just going to stick with that. I'm going to try to shape it a little bit more like his head is. So just using soft select on the UVs, I can move things around a little bit. I want to make sure that I'm selecting the same things on each side. Okay, that's good, because really all this I need is for the eyebrows, and just a little bit of coloration, like in the cheeks and in the lips. But that should be pretty good. And then I can shift select the jacket to see where it's positioned, and use my UV scale tool and turn soft select off, and move him into place. Okay. So now I have both those done out of the way. And with the eyes, they're already laid out, and I know that this will give me a good texture, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and scale them down. And move them into place on the texture. We'll do the pants next real quick. So again, I'm just going to planar map from the front. Save real quick. And now I want to put a couple of seams. I'll probably do one on each side, and then one in the middle. And this will give me two halves, my front and my back. So again, same basic thing as the sweatshirt. Just going to flip that one, unfold these, and unfold this. Now, this method of just unfolding UVs, it works great for meshes that you're either going to bake a texture onto or don't need a lot of detail. But as you can see, the seams aren't very, they don't have much form to them. They're not very good for tiling. Like, say if I had a pattern that I wanted to continue from this side over to this side, it really wouldn't work too great, and there'd be a lot of distortion in the texture. But since I'm going with mostly just solid colors right now, I'm not worried about it, and this approach will work fine. Okay, so looking at that, it looks like the legs are taking up a lot more space than they should be based upon the proportions of the jacket. So I'm just going to scale them down. Alright, and now we can just do the shoes. And now something that I'm going to do with these, since each foot is exactly the same, and same with the hands, there's no need really to unwrap both of them. And they can share the same UV space, since the textures will be the same as well in this instance. So what I can do is go ahead and planar map them. Probably I'll probably do these from the x-axis, looking at them from the side, and then I can make the seam on the instep of the foot. And come up a little bit right here, and back here. And go ahead and cut that, and see what this gives me. Okay, so I think this will work for the bottom portion of the foot, but I'm going to go ahead and take the ankle out and do a cylindrical map on it since it is a cylinder. Oh, but I need to make sure I select all the faces first. I'll try that again. So there we go. We have a cylindrical map for the ankle. Just move it out of the way for now. And then for the rest of the foot, let's try to unfold it again. So it's not wanting to work quite right. So what we can do is another method of unwrapping that I don't really recommend often, but for a simple object like this, we'll try it and see how it works. I'm just going to, I selected the UVs over here, and then you select convert selection to faces, and I'm going to tell it to automatically unwrap those currently selected faces. And then what I can do with this is then sew edges back together to try to create a better shape. So just going to look real quick at where pieces were cut, where it decided to make separations. And then you can just select pieces and tell it to sew back together. Selecting UVs is a little bit more helpful. I can snap these two back together since I know they go. Just holding in V snaps to vertice or UVs. So, save that. What I think I might end up actually going for is the sole, making it a separate UV set, or separate space. Just keep it on its own. I think that'll work out. Okay, so we connected those back parts. Let's try to fix it a little bit. Alright, so that's not going to work out too great. So we can have a seam on the inside back here. That shouldn't hurt anything. Let's just get this, oops. Just get this connected. Okay, that looks better. But I actually just realized the shoe actually has a design on it that will have to be textured separately. So it might actually pay off a little bit more to plan out the UVs on this section for those colors. For instance, I know that it kind of looks like a Converse sneaker. So it has the white toes, the white sole, and then it's a black sneaker on the sides. So what I can do is select what needs to be white and do a planar map from the bottom. Flip it so that it's not upside down anymore. And then unwrap it to fix the toe of it. So now if I just make that a solid white, that should take care of that. And then I can probably just sew this back side up. So then here we have the tongue and the back side of the shoe, and that should be good for everything. So, just scale everything down again. And this part's not really going to be visible too much, so it doesn't need much texture space. And the shoe is going to be a lot of solid colors as well. So let's just slide everything over here. Make it fit in this area. Okay, and that works. And since both feet are exactly the same, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that one now. duplicate across the x-axis, go modify freeze transformations. So now the normals are actually flipped inside out, so just go to normals, reverse. Okay, so they're going to share the same UV space, and even though this one says that it's inside out right now, it'll be alright, because it's just the reverse of that other foot. So there we go. So now we just have the hands and the hair left. Save again real quick. Okay, so hands are a bit tricky sometimes to unwrap. So the way that I usually start out is cylindrical mapping each finger. So I can start by doing that here on the index finger. Those. Okay, so I have it selected. Cylindrical map. And what I want to do then is use this little red cross down here and then rotate the cylinder that it gives me from the map to roughly fit the direction and shape of the finger. And I can watch over on the right sort of what it's doing with it and see what works best. So that looks like it could work. I'm not sure what it did with this here, so I can maneuver some stuff around manually if I need to. But it should work. It's, like I said, going to be mostly solid colors. So let's do the middle finger now. Got it all. The red cross. Really not sure what it represents, but it works, so I don't question it. Okay, so again, it's giving us a little bit of weird mapping, but nothing we can't move around. Okay, and do the same thing for the pinky now. Ideally, what I generally do for a character, any character that I make, is I have one nice pair of hands that I did for one of my first character models, and I just use the same exact pair of hands on every character that has normal human hands. Hands really aren't that different from person to person, besides the general shape and size of fingers. Some fingers have like a little bit of a curve to them, you know, general stuff like that. There's never really any major differences. So the same goes for feet. You know, general different body shapes. Having a few of them on hand is always helpful, and it's something that Tyler Ayers actually taught us in his modeling and animation classes was just sort of have like a morbid puppet shop, if you will, of parts and pieces from different characters that you can throw together to make a new character really fast if you need to. It's generally really helpful. It doesn't work with cartoony characters unless you have a stash of cartoony character body parts, which I don't. So doing this one all by hand. And what I notice right now, I don't have enough edge loops on this thumb. I can add that after the UVs are done, and it won't be a problem. But I just realized I could use another edge loop right in the middle here for where it's actually going to bend. Because right now it could crunch a lot. So do another cylindrical map for the thumb. Okay, looks good enough. Okay. Now I have everything sort of laid out roughly. The thumb a little bit bigger, index finger a little bit smaller, so that doesn't look proportional. And then just scale everything down together. And I want to keep everything in a general, hand orientation. So index finger, middle finger, pinky, and then thumb. Just so I know exactly what parts are what. And now, what I can do is using my UV shell tool, which is over here. Select everything, go selection, convert selection to faces, and now while holding in shift, just shift select drag over everything, and it'll deselect what I had selected and select everything else to get the rest of the hand. And I'm just going to do a new planar map on the z-axis, so the palm of the hand, and I'm going to put a cut right up through right here on the wrist, coming up to the bottom, to the base of the pinky. And another one at the base of the thumb. Now, everything should be connected via this point up here. So when I go to unwrap, it'll give me something ugly. Okay, so there's one other option. If your unfold tool isn't working quite right, what you can do is use this function right here called the unfold selected UVs. Sometimes it does a clean job, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, it worked pretty well. Pretty much exactly what I wanted. Except it did scale everything a little bit disproportionately. So fix that real quick though. Alright, so there's my hand. That's pretty much done. So just grab everything, scale it down, see where I have left on the UV space. I should have plenty of room actually, so I'm not too worried. Oh, I forgot about the backpack. I'm just gonna unorganize things just to fit better in the space. Well, it is storming outside. I just heard a loud clap of thunder. Alright, so scale the hand, get it over to the other side, freeze transforms, reverse the normals. Okay, so let's save that again, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete history because every bit of UV moving or touching up that you do is going to add more to the history, and it can get pretty big pretty fast. So, alright, so let's do the hair real quick. It shouldn't take too long because it doesn't actually have an inside. So we can planar map it from the top of the head and just tell it to unfold. It should give us, yeah, I mean, the actual like bits of hair where it hangs over his bangs and everything, they sort of bunch up there, but I think that could work. I think that should work fine for this model, since it's just going to be solid color again. So let's move that, make sure it's not over top of the eyeballs. Okay, so we grab everything again. Right. So we got a good bit left just for that backpack. There should be plenty of room. So again, the straps, they're going to be the same on each side. And since it's this really weird shape, but it all started from a cube, it's going to be really easy to map. We just shoot at it from the front, and we're going to put the seam on the inside edge so that it's farthest away from the player's view, less likely to be seen. Then we want one cut at the bottom and one at the top. No, two, sorry. Go on each side of the bottom. Okay, and then snip those and then unfold. And I'm going to use the unfold function again, and it's going to do something stupid. Oh my goodness. Okay, so yeah, this happens with UVs quite often. Maya just doesn't know how to take this basic shape, which could, be flattened out to a perfect rectangle, and it tries to coil it up like this. So I can just go in and select these specific UVs manually and just move them up and rotate and get them in the right orientation, and then select everything again and try my unfold now. So you just sort of have to help it out sometimes, tell it sort of what to do. So that looks good though. Scale that down. Move it off to the side. Alright, then we have this backpack right here. I can planar map this from the z-axis again. And I'm going to put my seams along this back side here. And I also want to cut in where I have this, where I have the flap coming up. I want to make it completely separate, so nope, not that one. So there. So now I'm cutting all the way around it, and that flap should separate. So snip. So that's just the flap. And let's see. And I can unfold that. Oh, I forgot about this. This is all actually one mesh. I forgot how I modeled it. So same deal with this little section though. I want it separated. So snip it again, move that, and then we should be able to unfold all of this. I'm just going to select the middle because everything else looks like it's working pretty well with this section, and just tell it to relax. It's a little too tense. Just come across the middle section here, unfold it a little bit, play with the shape, and again, solid color. It really isn't going to matter. This section's already done. This really only needs flipped inside out and then just a little bit. And then this is the little leather strap, so we want to make sure we keep it on its own. That will probably need a little bit more detail, just to be able to identify it. Probably put like the little slit for the button. Okay, now we have this section, which, if everything worked properly with our initial cuts, should unfold. Should unfold nicely. I had to say it. I think I missed a spot. Yeah, okay. So now I can unfold that. Unfold that. And looks good. And the little button, it's a cylinder primitive. It's already unwrapped. We just need to make sure we scale it down along with everything else. Oop, gotta select both sides. So keep it over here with the little leather strap. Go ahead and rotate it. Okay. So I'll select an object mode so I can see where everything's at. And now it's just going to be moving everything so that it all fits in the same space. Oop, what's this? Oh, that's the other strap. I forgot to duplicate the straps. So. Okay. Alright, so what I'm going to do real quick is just move the head and the eyes and the hair off because they need a little bit more space than the backpack. Alright, and now I can move the last couple pieces down in. Make sure I'm using the space to its fullest. This character's eyes need to be really expressive, so I want to make sure I give them plenty of space. But what I'm actually going to do is export everything as a very high-res texture that I can then lower later, downsample later if I need to. Let's move the thumb a little bit further. Let's give it more space. Okay. So now all the textures are done, and it's as simple as going to polygons, UV snapshot. I need to set my project. I didn't do that before I started this. It's a bad idea. So I want to go to set my project, save it again. Then polygons, UV snapshot. Kid, saving it as out UVs. I want to save it as a 2048 texture as a PNG, that way I can have transparencies. Otherwise, it would be really hard to see once you get it into Photoshop, which I'm going to go ahead and launch. Okay, so exported. I can go over here on my other screen to the images folder and find my UVs, and drag them into Photoshop. Close my animation timeline. I don't need that. Okay, so now what I have here is a apparently empty document, right? But if I throw a base color down, you can see the UVs. They're in as white right now. And what I'm going to do real quick is make a couple layers that I can start filling in. And I want to look at my concept art as well, because Ryan gave me a list of colors to use in Photoshop as well. So I want to start with the jacket real quick. I'm not going to do the shading because that'll be done with the toon shader in Unity. So we'll just name this layer jacket color. And I'm just going to use the lasso tool real quick to roll around and make my selections. And it's a lot easier to do this whenever you've done your own UVs and you know what every object is, you know where you put the different objects. So you don't have to go back and forth between the model to try to figure it out. So just fill that new layer. I'm going to name this my UV layer so I don't accidentally use it and lock it. So as you can see, it's just a solid blue there, nothing special. And then actually, if I change this layer to multiply, it should show up better. Do it over top. Wait. Okay, so I like this better for UVs. It's a little bit easier to see them once you get color underneath of them and everything. And also, there's a zipper on this front. It doesn't really need much detail, I don't think. There's not really any in the concept art. But so, just making this selection. And this is where his undershirt is. I'll do the zipper later. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm not too worried about it. So I'll make a new layer, call this backpack. Go over here, and I'm going to select the color that Ryan used on the backpack, this orange. Okay, that's solid color for now. I'll do that stuff later. Just so do the jeans next. Now it's really good to just keep your Photoshop document saved and nice and clean and organized in case you ever do have to go back and edit a texture later. It just really will save you a lot of time. And then do his shoes down here. Oopsie. So I remember from earlier that this is the section that needs to be white. It's really close together, but it should be fine. So this section needs to be white. The other section needs to be black. So I'm just going to invert my selection and just except for these, because this is the socks. So I'm just making an alternate selection that I can delete the black away from. Okay, and then I'm going to choose my hair color. So just a new layer. Control Shift N or Shift Apple N, Command N. It's the shortcut for creating a new layer. Okay, and then get my skin color. That's going to cover up. Actually, it might be easier. I just select everything else in its entirety on layer 0 and flood that, except for the eye, which I'm going to come up here and go ahead and do real quick. So the eye, I know just on the way that it unwraps spheres by default in Maya, this top half is where it actually converges in the center. And knowing about how many edges I had on that, what am I doing? On that sphere, the pupil should probably come out to about there, and then I can bring the iris out from that. And this could take just a little bit of playing with just to make sure. So it's, we'll see. So grab his eye color from over here. And I could go ahead and put those spots on the eye. I'm not going to just yet. I might do that later. But I just want to get all the basic colors down. I'll do detail work later, after I figure out how this looks. So then the eyebrow, I'll go back to the hair layer since they're going to both be the same color. Make sure I have the color selected. And I can brush them on. It's probably what I will do. I'll probably get out my tablet for the final version and actually just brush them on. But for now, for the sake of speed, this tutorial, I'll just use the lasso tool. Okay. Oop. Making apple A, apple C, apple V. Control. I'm on a Windows machine right now. Just move them to not the same position. That's good enough. Get rid of this chunk of hair. Now we want the button to be a different color too, so I'll go ahead and make a new layer for it. I'm not bothering naming anything anymore. Make the button gray. Like it's a silver button, sure. And we'll give the strap, we'll go ahead and give these like a leather color. So give me that brown, lighten up a little bit. Okay, so now I can just turn off my UV layer, do save, and I'm going to save this as my master texture, or master color map. And then I will do file save as, and just save this one out as a JPEG, and just it's the normal color map. I can put the prefix in it of what the color map belongs to, or I'll just do the kid color .jpegs. Okay, and then all I have to do is go back into Maya, select everything, assign new material or favorite material, assign a Lambert, go to its color output, or input, I'm sorry, select from the kid images, the kid underscore color, and hit number 6. So his eyes are pretty big, but there we go. He is fully textured and ready to go. And I can even add like a little toon shader outline to him if I want right now in Maya. That won't export to Unity, but just to see how it's looking. And that's pretty much it for how you unwrap and texture a model. As you can see, if I go to the UV texture editor, it'll show you and select my UV still, and it shows you where they are at on the texture map. And that's about it. So thanks for watching, and rigging and animating will be coming up next.